You're welcome to call me Cisco as well. All right, thank you very much for the opportunity to stand up here and talk about our personal story of using Amazon, both for ourselves and for our clients. So let's talk a little bit about us, not long, but Esri, 40-year strong company, started off by one man, his wife, Laura and Jack Dangerman, who still own the company. Give you a sense of the scale, right now we're holding our GeoGeek Fest in San Diego, about 15,000 GeoGeeks all convened into one place. We call them Esrilites. Esri Australia started in 1977, about 160 staff. We support and implement the software as well, and that's why Amazon's important to us, and I'll explain why in a moment. We have a system, we call that the ArcGIS Platform. It supports the modeling of real-world data, everything from water networks to road networks to deliver your concrete, really in the database. Looking at those geoanalytics, doing planning analysis, looking at past trends to predict future trends all within a location environment. Looking at workforce management, how do we locate our best resources to support an incident out in the space. Operational awareness, bringing together that location information of all those different sources of information inside of your business systems as part of a business workflow and making better decisions. And finally, something that's emerged quite recently is the concept of community engagement or crowdsourced geographic information, and bring that into your common operating picture, into your field force, into all sorts of different environments. It's a lot of fun. So we look, as an organisation, we look at ArcGIS as providing a complete geospatial platform. We're really focusing on those three key points: easy, powerful, and everywhere. And we've looked at individuals from a desktop deployment into work groups and into your enterprise space as a service-oriented architecture, even into, of course, today we're talking about the pervasive environment, and also talking about the mobile environment, as well as deploying all our capabilities, the same capability that individual does to generate a geographically weighted regression analysis, to be able to carry that out in the cloud. And really, the really interesting thing and the challenge that we've been going through over the last, I'd argue, 18 months to 2 years, is building that bridge between the enterprise space, which we're very, very strong in and the leader in, and going and moving into that pervasive GIS environment. And obviously the cloud's very important to us, and Amazon's very important to us to achieve that objective. And that's why we're deploying in the cloud. We're looking at it from an immediate infrastructure. We're looking at it from the fast deployment and the scalability. Many of the things that we've already heard today. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is where has that made the most sense? And we're talking about it from a disaster perspective, from managing public events, and also to a certain extent post-disaster in terms of recovery. Those are the case studies that work for our community today in the use of cloud. So we'll talk one from an international one first, and that's obviously BP. Don't need to go into the details of that. But what's really interesting is that from concept, we need to get something out there on the web, to actually deployment on the Amazon environment, it took us 1 week. And more importantly, it actually created a whole series of underlying services that we supplied to the emergency management. These were REST web mapping services that were then being able to consumed in any number of different devices and tools, including the state and federal response agencies within that area. Something a little bit more personal is also the story of the Walking Wounded series of Afghanistan's armed forces that were impacted. And we're doing a special walk to raise money for training and job retraining and recovery for those. About a 320K trek, live feeds, all done within Amazon Cloud, dealing with that information. There's something a little bit local, QRA, Queensland Recovery Authority, post the cyclones and post the floods. How do we communicate to the community as well as our other departments within the Queensland government agencies about what's the progress of that recovery? We hosted that also in the Amazon environment, and it was the fastest way in which we could get up there. But I want to talk specifically about two things. Firstly, the Brisbane Flood Map, the common operating picture. That actually had we have our head office in Brisbane. We have offices all around Australia. And Brisbane our office is actually on the corner of Elizabeth Street and Albert Street. The water was literally lapping up on that same block the night we were loading this map up into the Amazon environment. What we were trying to do is support the Brisbane City Council's program to get information out to the community, telling them where the evacuation zones are, where the news feeds are coming from, what's the latest events, what people are putting up there, and of course where the community responses were. We also had to generate this floodplain. We had to take centimetre accuracy digital terrain models run those flood models, and feed that information out dynamically from the sensor data that was coming in from a variety of different sources. So basically, we had literally 12 hours to deploy. I have to personally thank Amazon for stepping up because we exceeded our original profile and we had to scale up quite quickly. We looked at about 3 million maps being produced in the first week. The critical thing, though, was these high peaks, because the thing went viral. Somebody tweeted, got retweeted, showed up on Facebook, somebody's circle started spreading that information around quickly. That was actually one of the critical success factors for the site, and really meant that people could trust that site whenever they needed to get the latest information. Another one that we did, this is part of the community events that we support as an organisation, and it was actually, I'll be upfront saying, quite a few number of our staff actually race in this one. So we thought we'd use our own technology to support our community. And it's the Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Tracker. This is actually quite an intense one, surprisingly so. We had over 15 million maps produced in 2.5 days over the event. Funnily enough, we had peaks at breakfast and at dinner time, people wanting to know where things were at. And we actually had quite an extensive architecture to support this, and I'll show you why in a moment. 300 maps per second was some of the figures that we were dealing with. So we had the yacht locations feeding in GPS information, storing that in the yacht inside that database, data receiver environment. Then that's ported across to the database, and then we're feeding up through those 3 extra large EC2 instances out to the web browser and, of course, mobile devices. It was interesting, we almost had a 50-50 split of mobile devices to web pages. What I'm really here to talk about is that we are using EC2, as in Esri Australia, to achieve those objectives. But really what we're saying to our client base, all those government agencies, all those emergency management agencies, a bit harder with defence, all those commercial organisations that use our technology every day to use location in their business thinking and decision making, is to try and understand the value proposition of Amazon. I'll tell you a personal story in terms of the Brisbane City Council. They're not here, I know that for a fact. And that's, we had spoken to them about Amazon previously. We had told them that we can support a cloud environment. But it wasn't until the flood event and we put this up inside the Amazon and they saw the figures, they saw the facts, they saw the performance, that it finally clicked and they went, we now know what you're talking about. We see the value in investing in this type of approach and this type of deployment. We still have control, but we can deliver much better services to our community. So some of the things that we tell our customers and our client base to think about. Amazon Cloud is a perfect environment to do your server development. Why? Because you've got a pre-configured AMI with our software, optimized for deployment. You don't even think about it. You start it up, you load your app, you test it, you move on. That's actually extremely powerful. Terminate it, you're done. You don't have to go to IT and ask them, can I have a new instance, please? And wait for it to arrive and get access to it. You just do it. One of the things that GIS is phenomenal at is churning CPUs. Doing something like that floodplain analysis that we did for the Brisbane City, or taking into account, for instance, a standard suitability analysis, taking vegetation, soil, elevation, links to transportation, trying to define, and then using that to mash up those different layers of information to create a best site for laying down a new road or laying down a new pipeline. That type of stuff can grind down a business system to nothing. So what we're saying is, take that up into the cloud. Run those heavy end processes. Don't run something and, there's not a morning that I wake up and look at my Twitter feed and see some of our poor clients saying, I walked out the door last night triggering a process and Windows shut down 15 minutes later. Really, and this is going to this removes all that heavy lifting. Obviously taking the lessons from the Brisbane City Council, the concept of the rapid deployment environment. And the beauty about it is that everything that they can do today inside of their server environments, inside their enterprise systems, they can do up in the cloud with Amazon. There is no difference. There's no change in functionality or capability. And you guys are in serious trouble now that you're making uploads much more, let's say, inexpensive and free. We've got terabytes of data. Really the concept of having a backup inside the cloud, because we have tools that only send up delta tables. So we can actually synchronize between parent and child databases